A Yid told me, a friend of my father, he's my father's age. I'm a friend of my father. My father learned in Montreal, he learned here, but whatever it is. That he had a chaver in yeshiva, whose father did not allow him to hang out with Bachrim. His father did not let him sit in Fabrengens with Bachrim. He didn't even let, his father protected him from the boys in yeshiva. Why? His father from the generation before, his father was an Adam Godel B'Yossi. His father was a really great chassid, deeply involved in Lubavitch, very close to the Rebbe. And his father came here in 1940, and he was disgusted by the American Bacher. He was disgusted by the American Bacher. You know that label Posner, so Gesund and Shlita, and his older brother, Olav Hashem, Zalman Posner, went into the Friedrich Rebbe. And the Friedrich Rebbe told them, your father learned in Lubavitch. And when your father learned in Lubavitch, is given good on this. It was altogether different. But we're living now in America, and based on the situation in America, sollt ihr wissen, dass wir seien von euch zufrieden. Based on how things are here, I want you to know I'm happy with you. Wir seien von euch zufrieden. But a lot of the old-timers had a very difficult time with the American Chassidische Bocher. It's the Yeridus Aderis. I heard once at the Satmar of Rabbi Yossi Paltiel said that the difference between before the Holocaust and after the Holocaust is a Yerid of 300 generations. 300 Deris. How many years is that? 1,000 years? It's 2,000 years. Now the Gemara says that when you want to exaggerate, you should use the number 300. The Gemara says that when you want to say a guzma, use number 300. You found a whole sugi in Shas. So I would imagine that he was being magzim. And he knew the Gemara that 300 is a guzma, so he used that number on B'kavana. But the point is clear that so he was a Yid living in America. He grew up in Lubavitch, came from a very Chassidish home. He was a very big Talmud Chacham, a Ovid, and a Maskil, and Abal Midas Tevis. He was a complete person, a very unusual man. And he didn't like his son's friends. So he kept them away from him. And the person who told it to me said to me that this boy in certain ways excelled. He was hired by the Bacharim because his father, quote, protected him from the Amerikanitzi. But he didn't grow up normal. Socially, he didn't have chaverim. His father did not allow him to associate with Bnei Giloi. So this is a true story. This is a true story. And he told it to me with a name. And he even told me details, more details that I'm sharing. But it must have been so hard for the Chassidim in the olden days. It must have been so hard. And I've heard from many people, if you go back 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, there was a generation of Temimim who learned in Lubavitch. How did they look at the American kids? They made fun of them, they belittled them. And probably the worst crime of all is they wouldn't engage with them. You know what the Friedrich Rebbe say in the Sichos? What was the trademark of Chassidus? The Mesiras Nefesh of the old Chassid for the young Chassid. And the Mesiras Nefesh of the old Chassid for the young Chassid is, I'm higher than you, I'm in a different generation, but this is you and I got to talk to you. A lot of them did not have a Safa Mishatefes. They couldn't find a way to talk to the younger Bacharim. Had they talked to the younger Bacharim, maybe the younger Bacharim about Noise Gezen Shannon, the Bacharim would have been nicer. And you know what? They would have probably lived longer. They would have been more Makusha to our Rebbe. They would have understood the Rebbe. The only one who didn't have a problem with the American Bacharim was the Rebbe himself. Now, who is farther away from the Bacharim? Chassid Pleini Ben Pleini, or Chassid Pleini Almaini, or Chassid Shalmaini Talmaini, ich weiß. The Rebbe was so in tune with the American Bacharim. He was so in tune with the American Bacharim. And there's stories, there are proofs for this. Proofs for this. I once told you this, Maise. I have not been able to verify it fully. But there's a Yid that leapt Lariches Yom Vishonim Tev. His name is Harav Yitzchak Reitport. Yitzchak Reitport. He's a Gon Amiti. He was born in Russia. He probably never knew his father. He was a Yosem. He learned Torah day and night. He was very close to the Rebbe. Ad Yom Hazeh. Very close to the Rebbe. And he wrote a sefer. The Rebbe paid for the publishing of his sefer. Since then he's published many Sfarim. The Rebbe paid. And the Rebbe wrote him the closest thing to a Haskama. The Rebbeim don't write Haskamas for Sfarim, so he writes Amar Haskama. There was a Yid in Lubavitch who was a Goan Olam, famous Talmud Chacham, who died after the war. And his family published a sefer for his chus. And they wanted from the Rebbe a Haskama. And the Rebbe wasn't giving. And they told the Rebbe straight out, what about Yitzhak? Yitzhak was a bocher. And basically, he wasn't born in America, but he might as well have been American. And I don't know how the Rebbe answered, but the Rebbe said, he's one of my guys. This is different. He's one of mine. And it's really difficult to fully appreciate how much of a situation this was. I mean, I guess today it's still a situation on some level, but it was a huge situation. Now, what did the Bachrim have? If they didn't have Elter Chassidim, they didn't have Mashpiyim, they didn't have Madrichim, because they wouldn't talk to them. They didn't speak their language. They had the Rebbe. They had the Rebbe, that's it, they had the Rebbe. Now, officially, there were a lot of people holding positions, but there was always the kid of Alavavis that should have been in a different universe, in a parallel universe, as some people call it. They didn't have what they couldn't relate. The Elter could not relate to the Yingere. They was too far apart. Now the Rebbe is infinitely farther apart than anybody else, and the Rebbe was so close. He didn't have this issue. And it explains this Amalek is treif, you see. It explains the Amalek is treif. What used to be is treif. If you look back at the past, only in a lamenting way, not in a way that inspires. Amalek is treif. And let's be honest, let's give the other side of the coin. There were Chassidim, also Temimim, who also learned in Lubavitch, for various reasons. I mean, probably the most notable personality is Rebbe Tzien Shem Tov Alav Shalom, who adapted to the Rebbe so completely, and he spoke the language of the Bachrim of our generation, and they were incredibly close. He came from that world, but he somehow, whatever his chush was, most importantly, he understood what the Rebbe wanted. He understood what the Rebbe wanted. And because he understood what the Rebbe wanted, he understood the place that the American boy, that the boy who doesn't live in what the Rebbe calls Yemei Ha'or. The Rebbe writes in letters, Yemei Ha'or, the days of light. How they are valuable, how they are precious, how they are great. And that's what he did. The Goyim and the Bachrim. He wasn't the only one, but to a great extent he was very unique in his ability to speak the language of the new generation. It was the language of the Rebbe, and it was the language of the American Bacher. It was the language of a boy who grew up after all the tzaras. I've mentioned this to you before. I'm not going to say any names. A younger man went on shlichus. A Lubavitcher Chassid went on shlichus to a certain place. When he came to that shlichus, I don't think he was 30 yet. I don't think he was 30. In that place, there were many Chassidim who learned, many Temimim. There were many Jews from the generation before. Some actually learned in Lubavitch, some learned in Poltava and in Nevel and these places. And he was young, and he was the shliach. So he would make Lubavitch events. When he made Lubavitch events, the Anash would participate. And there was an old Chassid who was probably 50 years his senior, 40 years his senior for sure, who would sit and mock him as he talked. He would sit and laugh at him as he was talking. He was muttering under his breath and played it. He knows what he's talking about. This young Chassid accepted it. Everyone's got their golos. It was his golos. The Rebbe found out about it. And the Rebbe did not find out about it from the shliach. He found out from another party. And the Rebbe wrote a letter to this old Chassid, and I saw that letter. And the Rebbe writes to him, I'm writing this letter to you, even though I don't think this letter is going to make any bit of difference. But I feel obligated to make a Machon. I feel obligated to make a protest. And the Rebbe writes, you're living in a city where there are so many Anash. You've been living there for so many years. In this time, you could have built a shul, you could have built a cheder, you could have built a yeshiva, you could have built a girls' school, and you have put your finger in cold water, you've done a thing. Then comes a boy who didn't live through the illuminated days of Lubavitch, was born in the days of blood, he was born in Russia, never had a normal childhood. He was not in Lubavitch, he didn't see Chassidim, he didn't see any of that. And he's doing all the things you should have done. And I hear that every time he opens his mouth, you mock him. The life of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe writes, I don't think my words are going to make a difference, but I can't be quiet, I have to protest. This letter was shown to me by one of this shliach's grandchildren. And he added that when that old chassid got that letter, he never, ever was disrespectful to his Eidah. In other words, he got the message. From that, he understood what the Rebbe was saying. At least don't hurt him. You don't want to help him nicht. Aber chip him nicht. So there was a big issue. And the yesod of it, Amol, it used to be Amol. You know, listen, there's an Amol today. You know, the Amol today is, if you would have been by the Rebbe, you were never there, so you don't know. And da geht der Kind gewesen nicht. But it's a klippe. It's such a klippe. What are you trying to do? You're Yotzei Chassidus by telling a kid that you're better than him? The whole Chassidus says, what can you give this kid? The whole Chassidus, how can you lift this kid up? Yeah, you were by the Rebbe. Give that child your opportunity. Who will be nicer? You know what I'm saying? It's a real thing. It's a real thing. When Eltern sits with the kinder, you should kiss them. There's not enough saliva to kiss the kids of our generation, the next generation. Man kann sie nicht kuschen genug. Das sie heuben. Because Amalek is treif. The idea that somehow what was better, it's immaterial. It's immaterial. Yeah, everybody understands what they don't understand. You think the Bochum in Tafshin Chav Beis didn't understand that a boy who learned in Lubavitch could understand Chassidus better, or could daven harder, or knew Nigla more? He wasn't a fool. What do you want him to do? Not exist? Not do his piece? The Elteras and the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in many sichos that in the olden days, one of the trademarks of the model of Chassidus was the Mesiras Nefesh of the Eltere for the Yingere. Eltere Chassidim used to sit with the kids and not condescend and not put them down and be makad of them and lift them up and direct them. He adds that the young had to have Mesiras Nefesh to listen. This is the pshat Amalek is treif. Amalek is treif. And I would argue, and I think correctly, that the archetype of this model is our Rebbe. The Rebbe never talked about the past. Never. Now, when I say the Rebbe didn't talk about the past, that's a lie. Of course he talked about the past. But he never talked about the past nostalgically. He never talked about the past as, it used to be better. It wasn't part of his lexicon at all. It was always now. Now. Now was the best time. Deir Hashvi. The Rebbe said that the 6 generations of Rabbeim is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Deir Hashvi is Shabbos. The Rebbe said that. And the Rebbe said it, he believed it. What's the Havana Shebedovert? I heard there was an old chassid who used to come to the Rebbe's Fabrengenischen, and he was Bechlal, the Rebbe was not a Lubavitcher, a Peilisher. And when the Rebbe made this statement, this was too much for him, he stopped coming to Fabrengen. So the Rebbe noticed that he was no longer coming, and the Rebbe asked Rabbi Groner, where is he? So Rabbi Groner didn't want to tell the Rebbe the truth, so he gave some kind of excuse. So the Rebbe said to him, Ich wundere sich, sie weiß, als der Baal Shem Tov gefindt sich beim Fabrengen. I wonder if that old man who stopped coming because I said that Deir Hashvi is Shabbos and it wasn't his liking, if he knows that the Baal Shem Tov is sitting with me by the Fabrengen. I'm wondering if he knows that the Baal Shem Tov is beim Fabrengen. I wonder if he knows. The Rebbe was so not that. He was so now. But the Rebbe nicht verstanden. The Rebbe nicht verstanden. I always tell you the same word. I have a reshima, which I cannot find now, but I saw it years ago. It's too good. I couldn't have possibly made it up. But I saw it. I have it in one of my notebooks of Rishimis, where a Yid came to the Rebbe in the early 70s. And he told the Rebbe that a Kupnishtais, he was a Hungarian Jew from before the war, a Chassidish Yid before the war. And America was not his liking. I mean, I remember some of these people. He was a Talmud Chacham, and he was a Chassidish Yid from the old country. And he found everything in America superficial, fake, plastic. It's true, Alas Emes. And he told the Rebbe that he doesn't like it. And the Rebbe spoke to him in Yiddish. And the Rebbe says to him, was trachst du? Ich wollte nicht gewollt sein bei Deire, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, wenn Teire sich gewalget in de Gassen. Aber der Rebbe hat mir gelegt in dem Dor, weil ich ton der Aveide von dem Dor und ich will das ton besimche. You understand Yiddish? He says to him, you don't think I would want to be in the generation of Yochanan ben Zakkai when Torah was rolling in the streets? You think I love this? You don't think I would love to be surrounded by 100 people who can spar with me in Torah and love this? But the Eibishter put me in this generation, and I'm going to do the avoid of this generation. And then he added that I'm going to do it with joy. If this is what the Eibishter wants from me, this is what the Eibishter is going to get from me. So it's really true that the Rebbe did not talk about Amol. The Machon, when the Rebbe spoke about lighting candles, he said Amolat mit gezündeten Licht. But he wasn't saying Amolat mit gezündeten Licht und Heinz zint mir nicht. The Vater Baruch jetzt zinden, it was better then. It was always now. And again, this, God should forgive me for saying it, the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushke, talk about Amol all the time. She was very much into nostalgia. I didn't know her. If I would see her in the street, I wouldn't recognize her. But people who knew that Rebbetzin knew that she talked about the glorious past. This is where she lived. Her memories. When she left Lubavitch, she was all of 15. When she talked about the Temimim, she talked about the Bacharim, I thought I heard from people. It sounded like she was talking about her brothers. There was so much love, there was so much affection, there was so much pride. Now, the Rebbetzin wasn't the Rebbe. You're not supposed to say this, but in this Prat, the Rebbe never did that. A junger man hat mir gesagt that he went to see the Rebbetzin with his Kala. The Rebbetzin asked him, ob is an unsere. He married the grandson of Rabbi Simcha Chaim. He was not a Lubavitcher from home. He came from another kind of Chassidus, a Baba home. So his Kala was Spitz Chabad. That was his connection. So when they came to see the Rebbetzin asked him if he's an unsere, if he's one of us. What's he supposed to say? Is my family's Bobav? So he told the Rebbetzin, I'm equal to everybody else. And the Rebbetzin said to him, as du hast chasne mit die Mishpache, Rebbe Simcha's granddaughter, bist du in ganzen, and I think she's not an eigene, not an unsere. If you marry the granddaughter, Rebbe Simcha, you're entirely ours. The Rebbe never uttered those words. They never came out of his mouth. You know who's an unsere? Aben Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Abba, Sarah, different. Period, the end, full stop. Finished. By the Rebbe, an unsere, Yid an unsere. When the Rebbe talked to the Belzer Rebbe about learning Chassidus with girls, 40 years ago, the Rebbe explained to him why you have no Chassidus with girls, because there's going to be new problems coming up. So the Belzer Rebbe says to the Rebbe, we don't have these problems. Today they do, but then 40 years ago. So the Rebbe says, I didn't know that by you there's two kinds of Jews, yours and others. The Rebbe never ever saw Lubavitch as a group. Every Yid is a Lubavitcher. The Chadakov, you say, you either know it or you don't know it. You either accept it or you don't accept it, but you're a Lubavitcher. The Rebbe...